guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome sis. My name is Yap, and today I have this really nice, super clean and neat natural glam tutorial. Hope you guys really enjoy this video. Get real comfy and cozy and be prepared to learn a thing or two. Okay, period. So I'm starting out first with her brows because I just feel like the brows shape the face, so I always start with it first. And I'm rubbing down her brows with some rubbing alcohol just so I have a nice clean canvas to work with. And now I'm taking some Got2b glue hair gel, and this is the one from the yellow tube, and I have that on a disposable mascara wand, and I'm just working that product into her brows. I like to use hair gel to like lay down the brow hairs because I just feel like it allows me to shape the brows in any form that I want it to be in, and it also helps to hide some of the unwanted brow hairs when your client's brows are not done. This is just a trick that I like to do because it gives the illusion that the client's brows are done because it's like laying and gluing the hair down a little bit. And now I'm taking some eyelash glue and I run a little tiny bit over the brows just to make sure it has like extra security and like the brow hairs won't be like messy and all over the place. But now I'm going in with that rubbing alcohol again and wiping the area of the brows just to make sure that it's not like really sticky. And then I take a little bit of translucent powder and I'm just mattifying her brows with that a little bit because when I apply the brow pencil like I'm doing right here, I don't want it to like slip and slide everywhere, so it just gives the brow pencil something to like grip to a little bit. And now I'm going to outline her brows. Now as you can see, her hair is really light, so I didn't want to make the brows too harsh, so I'm outlining it with a dark brown eyebrow pencil, but then I'm going to fill it in with a light brown eyebrow pencil just to make sure that her brows match her hair. Now that's not her natural hair color. She has I'm pretty sure it's like the same color as her brows because that's typically how, you know, human anatomy works, I believe. But you know, I just want to make sure that it's not too harsh. So I always try to make sure to match the brows with my client's hair. Unless it's like colored or something and they ask for it. But you guys get what I'm saying. And if you want a very, very in-depth client eyebrow tutorial or one on yourself, both of those are on my channel, so you guys can go check that out. It's not too far on my channel or anything. It's pretty recent. Also, all the products that I use will be like on the screen when I use it because I don't want it to be like confusing or you guys don't know like which product I'm using if I like leave the list in the description box below. So now we are doing my favorite part, which is concealing the brows, and I'm taking a little bit of concealer and I have that on a Morphe M124 brush, which is my favorite brush to conceal brows and cut creases and stuff like that, just because it gets like really flat and it has like an oval shape to it, so it kind of does most of the work for me. And I'm like, as you can see, I'm like lifting up the brows while I conceal them just because I feel like it allows me to get a nice smooth application with that concealer. And then I'm also going to drag the product down as I apply it just so that it's easier to blend out later. And now I'm concealing the top of the brows, and I like to, as you can see, draw a line in the middle so that I can see if the brows are like really even. That's like my trick. Like I'll connect this concealer from the left brow to the right brow just so I know that they're even. And I like to also go in with a light concealer on the outer edges of the brows just to make sure that it's extra sharp. You don't have to do this. This is just something that I do personally just to add like an extra little touch. It's optional, but I definitely recommend it because it makes the brows really sharp when you do that. So now I'm going to blend out that concealer, and the concealer on the bottom of the brows I'm blending downward onto her lid just so that it can act as like eyeshadow primer later on. And if you were wondering, the first color that I used on the bottom of her brows, it was like a shade or two lighter than her natural skin tone, and the one on the top I tried to make it match like exactly to her skin tone just so that I can avoid that halo effect, but it can still be like really neat and look really fleeky, you know? I also like to add a little bit of concealer that's left over on my brush and just apply that in the middle of the brows and like blend and tug at it just to get that nice gradient effect so it doesn't look really harsh. So now we're moving on to the eyeshadow portion. So I'm taking a concealer that's probably like a shade or two darker than her skin tone, and I'm just going to blend that on her eyes with the Morphe M433 brush, and this is going to serve as a base for the brown eyeshadow just so that it pops and it looks really rich on her skin. When I'm working with an eyeshadow look that has like one predominant color, like a smoky eye or something, I use a base that's the same color as the eyeshadow because it will pop way more. So now I'm applying a brown eyeshadow from the Juvias Place Warrior 2 palette, and I'm just tapping that on. And now I'm going to apply another brown eyeshadow from the Rust palette, and I'm also going to tap that on just because I felt like the first brown didn't really give me the brown I wanted. And as you can see, this is the brown that I wanted. Like, I was really aiming for like a chocolatey bronzy brown on her skin tone. But honestly, any brown eyeshadow that you have that you like will work as long as it's like a shade or two darker than your client's natural skin tone. And now I'm taking some translucent powder and I'm just setting underneath her brow because that area was a little wet due to like the concealer from before. And I'm just adding a little bit of that eyeshadow, the brown eyeshadow, back. Now I'm going to apply some black liner to her lash line. And I like to do this before I apply lashes because I feel like just in case I accidentally apply it too high and there's that gap, you won't be able to see it. And I also put a little bit of liner on her lashes to act as a mascara because sometimes it's a little tricky to apply mascara on a client because they might twitch and stuff, so that just makes it easier for me. And I also like to put some eyelash glue on the lash line as well because it just gives a more secure hold when you apply the lashes, and it also helps to like make the lash process go quicker. And I also put a little bit of highlighter on her brow bone just for that extra pop. And there will be a link in the description box to these lashes because I get a lot of questions about it, especially on Instagram. So now we're done with the eyes and we're gonna move on to the face. So she has oily skin, but it honestly doesn't matter the skin type your client has. You should always moisturize because it just gives you a very smooth base to work with, and it won't, it will help you avoid your makeup cracking later because it's too dry and stuff like that. And surprisingly, the key to getting like a really good application as far as oily skin with makeup is to moisturize because your skin won't need to produce as much oils. So I'm just rubbing that in with this random foundation brush I have, and I like to really massage it into my client's skin just to make sure that their face is really moisturized, and they love it. They're like, girl, it felt like you was giving me a massage. So I just like to do that just to add an extra oomph to the makeup process. And now I'm taking some Milk Hydro Grip primer, and I also rub that in with the same brush that I used to rub in the moisturizer. And this will allow your makeup to have some longevity because it gives the makeup something to stick to. So I really love this for all skin types as well. I highly recommend it, especially with oily skin. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just applying some RCMA no color powder again to the places of her face that get like really oily, and setting those oily spots of your face or your client's face with powder will help your makeup last longer because it kind of like mattifies the makeup a little bit, and it helps to keep those oils down and keep them from making your makeup move and stuff like that. It just helps to keep the makeup in place. So I definitely recommend that for all my people with oily skin. So now we're gonna move on to the foundation. So I had to mix like 3 or 4 foundation shades to get her proper shade. But after I did my mixing, I take a lipstick applicator, and as you can see, I like to apply the foundation in sections. One, because I feel like if the foundation shade is wrong in any way, I'll catch that mistake quicker if I was to just spread the foundation all over and then like it's a little too late and now I have to like contour or highlight differently to like even everything out. And I'm also taking a napkin and putting it on the collar of her shirt because I didn't want to get makeup on it. You got to do what you got to do to protect your client's clothes, okay, period, because makeup stains and it's so annoying. But I'm also using a lipstick applicator to apply and spread the foundation on her face because the lipstick applicator, because it's so small, it allows me to pick up a very small amount of product, but I also get to spread it in a nice even coat. I prefer this over using brushes because I just feel like it doesn't pick up too much product, so it won't feel too heavy, you know. And I just make sure to blend that down the neck as well. And this process just gives me a nice light application, but it looks so full coverage, and we love our full coverage queens, okay, period. And I also dusted away that powder that we had sitting in those oily spots. You don't want to leave it there and put the foundation right over it. You want to make sure you wipe it away because you don't want your makeup to be cakey. And if you put the powder on top, I mean, not the powder on top, the foundation on top of the powder as like your primer, it will not move later, and it'll be hard to like blend in concealer on like those areas and stuff. So definitely make sure you wipe it off. And yeah, I'm just blending in the foundation on her face, making sure to use patting motions to really get a nice seamless blend. And now we're going to highlight, which is also one of my favorite parts of the makeup process. And I'm just applying some highlight in the areas of her face that like receives light the most, which is kind of like the T-zone and her upper lip and her forehead and the ridge of her nose and then her eye. So I'm using a concealer brush, the same brush that we used for the brows and to apply that brown base in the beginning. I'm using that to apply the concealer for the same reason I use a lipstick applicator to apply the foundation, because it'll give me a full coverage look, but it'll feel really, really lightweight on my clients. And I could have used a lipstick applicator to apply the concealer too, but I like the way the concealer brush applies the concealer. You know, I'm really specific about the tools that I use, so that's why I'm using a concealer brush to apply the concealer. And I like to apply two concealers, so this second shade is a little bit lighter than the first, and I'm just going to take a very, very small amount and put that right on top just to make sure I have like her perfect highlighting shade. You know, makeup is about just, you know, layering on products to get the perfect look that you desire or that your clients desire. So don't be afraid to layer on products, as long as you're not like caking it on and it doesn't feel like too heavy and look too heavy, then you're all good. Unless that's what your client wants, then hey, you know, give them what they want. And now we're moving on to contour. So I'm taking the Juvias Place, I think it's the Magic foundation stick, and I'm just applying that to the places that I didn't really necessarily want to like chisel down or slim down, because I felt like, you know, she has a very nice facial features and I love the structure of her face, but I wanted to add some warmth. So this foundation stick has more of like a warm undertone rather than a cool undertone, and I'm just patting that in with the same brush that I used to blend in the foundation, because I feel like the products mesh better together when you use the same brush. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm also blending out the edges of that highlight or concealer that we applied right before we did the contour. And if you're wondering, I let the concealer sit before I blend it out immediately, because I just feel like when it gets tacky, it blends out better and it looks a little more full coverage. So that's why I let it sit. And yeah, we're just blending in that highlight and that contour, and I'm making sure to kind of like blend them into each other so that you can't tell where one starts and where the other one stops. So to blend out the highlighted areas of her face, I'm gonna go back and forth with a beauty blender and the same brush that we used to blend out the foundation and the contour, just to make sure that there's no like harsh lines or anything. And I'm also gonna go in with a tiny fluffy brush, which is the same brush that we used to blend out the concealer on her brows in the beginning. And I kind of used this brush too just because the concealer wasn't budging as I wanted it to, so I had to go in with like a fluffy but like slightly dense brush to make sure that the concealer is nice and blended, because the beauty blender wasn't like moving the product as much as I needed it to move. And this brush doesn't have a specific name because I got it from a set on Amazon a mad long ago, but any fluffy concealer brush that you have works. Like the Real Techniques setting brush, that could work for this. The e.l.f. Blending Perfector brush or Flawless Concealer brush could work for this. Any concealer brush that you have that you like will be able to blend it out for sure. Something I like to do as well is I like to take a little bit of product left over on the beauty blender and run that underneath her cheekbone just to like reverse contour and like sharpen up that contour a little bit, and it just helps clean up the contour tremendously, like just in case it looks a little muddy or you dragged it down a little too far. And now I'm going to set those highlighted areas of her face with the SACHA Cosmetics Buttercup setting powder, and I believe I used the shade Light, and I'm just going to pat that into her skin with the Real Techniques setting brush. So me personally, I am a fan of applying several layers of different powders on the face. So this is like the first initial layer of powder, and I'm using a light hand and just making sure to press the powder into her skin just to make sure that the face is set. But then I'm going to go in with a disposable makeup sponge, and I'm going to apply a little bit more of the SACHA Cosmetics Buttercup powder in Light, and I'm just going to tap a thin layer over those highlighted areas as well. And I'm also going to place a little bit under the highlighted area that we put underneath the cheekbone just to sharpen up the contour a little bit. And I'm gonna allow this to like bake just for a little bit because I feel like it really sets the makeup, and it also helps the makeup to look a little more smooth. This is what personally works for me. I know a lot of makeup artists don't like to bake, but I just feel like it's all about how you bake. Like as long as you don't like cake on a whole bunch of powder, you won't have any flashback and it won't look cakey or anything. So while I let that powder bake and do its thing, I'm gonna take the Real Techniques setting brush again and the RCMA no color powder again, which is my favorite translucent powder. It looks great on all skin tones no matter how dark or light you are. And I'm just going to set the remaining areas of her face that I didn't apply the setting powder with, because when you put contour or bronzer over like the cream contoured areas of the face, I feel like it comes out patchy. Like you should definitely set it first and then apply your like powder, contour, bronzer or whatever. So after I set the remaining areas of her face, I'm now gonna go in with that Sephora Micro Smooth powder to wipe away the baking powder on the highlighted areas of her face. And this Micro Smooth powder really lives up to its name. Like it gives such a smooth finish and it just looks so bomb on the skin. So I'm just using that to like add another layer of powder and just wipe away the setting powder or the baking powder, if you will. And now we're going to contour the nose. So I'm not a big fan of like really harsh nose contours, so I like to use powder bronzers or contours to contour the nose, because I just feel like it allows me to have more control over how harsh the nose contour is. So yeah, and I really like to focus it on like the area in between the eyes and the bridge of the nose that like goes into the beginning of the brow. I started doing this like a couple of months ago, and I just feel like it adds such a fire effect to the makeup. Like it really helps to define the bridge of the nose, and it just makes everything look super bomb. I also used the Morphe M433 brush, which was the same brush that we used for the brown eyeshadow, to contour the nose as well. And I also put a little bit of that Sephora Micro Smooth powder on the outer edges of her nose just to sharpen it up when I wipe it away. And we're gonna let that bake a little bit so that it's really sharp and it does a little like reverse contouring action. And while that bakes and does its thing, I'm going to I'm going to add a little bit of bronzer from the Juvias Place Bronzer Duo palette. This is in the shade Tan, and I'm using the Real Techniques setting brush again. You know, like I said before, I love to use the same brushes within the same makeup application because I feel like the products mesh together beautifully and they all just, you know, blend so flawlessly when I do that. So now I'm also going to wipe away that baking powder that we put underneath the contour. And as you can see, it looks very, very sharp and it just added a nice effect to the makeup, you know? So, you know, we're just bronzing up the skin, making sure to add some nice warmth and color to her so she just looks really like melanated and juicy, you know? Okay, so now we're gonna move on to some blush, and I'm applying some orange blush to the temples of her face and her nose. And I like to focus blush on the temple when I'm working with my clients because I just feel like it gives a more snatched and lifted look. When you apply blush on the cheeks, it tends to like round out your client's face, and her face was already a little round, so I didn't want to enhance that, so I just focused it more on the temples. And now I'm applying a little bit of this like random bronzer that I have in this random pencil brush, and I'm just putting that underneath the eye just to like complete the eye look. And I'm also gonna add a little bit of this like silvery eyeshadow to the corner of her eyes just for an extra pop of color. And now we're going to apply some highlight, and this is my favorite highlighter in the world, which is the Artist Couture highlighter in Conceited. And I'm applying that with the Real Technique setting brush again, and we're just going to focus that on like her cheeks and her cupid's bow and the bridge of her nose and the tip of her nose.
Wow, oh my God, thank you. Oh my God, I never seen it like this.
You like it?
So much.
Okay.
I love it.
Good.
I don't like it, I love it.
Okay. Good.